Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Pamela, and you are watching Pam Entertainment TV, where we review movies, television series, and incidents in pop culture. Housekeeping, please hit that like button and also subscribe. And once you subscribe, you'll be open to a plethora of videos that I have completed movie reviews, television series reviews, and also incidents in pop culture. Listen. You see the title, you see the title, you see the title. Baby, when I tell you, when I tell you, we're going to be talking about OJ Simpson and his influence on pop culture. Now, I know you all say, Pam, what are you talking about? OJ Simpson? Yes, OJ Simpson. Now, we learned that on April the 10th, 2024, that OJ Simpson died and he succumbed to prostate cancer. And as I say before, because that is the cancer that took my father out, y'all get your young men, get your prostates checked. Get your prostates checked. If you're feeling funny down there and things ain't working right or you're not getting the things, go get your prostate checked. And don't allow people to tell you, oh, well, the normal average screening is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Don't do that. Go get screened. If you know that you have had people in your family, fathers, cousins, uncles, brothers, whatever, go get your prostate checked, please. Go get that checked. Now, that's just my little PSA. OJ Simpson and his influence on pop culture. And what I'm talking about is how we view certain things in the pop culture zeitgeist, how we view certain things now are, in my opinion, directly attributed to OJ Simpson and OJ Simpson's trial back in the 90s. So, I've got probably five different points that I want to make, and how people have been influenced by pop culture. The first thing, cameras in the courtroom. That was one of probably, because were there cameras in the courtroom? Yes and no, depending on where you live. Uh, Court TV has been around for a minute. And as I remember back in the 90s, in the early mid and early 90s, they would Florida was allowing cameras in the courtroom, but other jurisdictions did not. They did allow audio. So what would happen is that you would listen to what was going on in court. With O.J. Simpson and Judge, what was his name, Robert Ito, when he allowed the cameras in the courtroom, we had a firsthand look at how trials were run. Uh, we weren't allowed to see the jury, but we were allowed to see all the witnesses. We were allowed to hear all the motions and things like that. And I think as a culture, we became addicted to and enjoyed a lot of court TV, uh, trials and things of that nature. Because you think about all the big trials that have happened since the O.J. Simpson case. You remember Casey Anthony was a big trial. You remember the Scott Peterson case was a big trial. And there were several. There was another Peterson guy that was a big trial. So cameras in the courtroom gave the public a glimpse of courtroom procedures. And I think that was an influence in pop culture because now we have whole channels. We have listen, you have YouTube, your true crime girlies and young men that are out here doing all this true crime and everything like that. That's partly, in my opinion, due to the O.J. Simpson case. The second thing that I think that was popular, that influenced pop culture is journalism. A lot of journalists names made their names or made their bones off this OJ Simpson case. And also, what we found with this OJ Simpson case and these journalists is that instead of the story being the main focus, you start seeing that the journalists became the main focus. One of the things that I can really get back to was, you remember Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo made his whole case, his whole about him and his disdain for OJ Simpson. And people watched because they felt like it was the journalists against OJ Simpson. And everyone had a little take. You think about Nancy Grace. I remember after the case was over, Nancy Grace and Johnny Cochran had a show together. And again, she made her name known off of the OJ Simpson case, really pretty much the aftermath. I don't know if you remember Star Jones. She'd made her bones. She was on I know she was on The View, and I know she was on some things like that. But Star Jones also covered the O.J. Simpson case. You also have what's his name? Dan Abrams. He covered the O.J. Simpson case. So there's a lot of journalists that made their names known from following this O.J. Simpson case. And then we started seeing the quote unquote celebrity journalist, and this is what's affected pop culture today, because we have a lot of celebrity journalists, and everybody wants to make their name and their ideas and all these different things known. You can tell this by Fox News, you can tell this by CNN, you can tell this by MSNBC. It is the news anchor whose name is known more so than the facts and things in the the stories that they're telling. We, you know a Rachel Maddow, you know people like that. Now she didn't cover the O.J. Simpson case, but she is a direct descendant of the entertainment journalist, and all of that kind of fueled from the O.J. Simpson case. You have what is big in the pop culture in regards to um, defendants and people who have been convicted of crimes, and then you find out that because of crooked cops or mishandling of evidence or witnesses lying and recanting, whatever it is, we have now the Innocence Project, and that is directly affected by the O.J. Simpson case. Why? Barry Sheck, the person who um, is one of the co-founders of the Innocence Project. He was an attorney for O.J. Simpson. He was part of the Dream Team. There were others who were on this team as well. Remember, I talked about Johnny Cochran, but Johnny Cochran has since passed away. But he was part of the legal team as well. One of the again, I talked about the true crime girlies and the true crime boys, and they are all on YouTube, and they're all on TV and all these little different TV shows and things like that, that talks about true crime and talks about court cases and things like that. That has been the O.J. Simpson case has been a big influence in pop culture on that. Just even I wanted to talk about even with the vehicles, the Ford Bronco. Prior to O.J. Simpson being arrested and then being tried, there was a time when, quote unquote, they thought that he was trying to escape, and they had the slowest car chase on earth. He was hiding in the back of the Bronco, and his good friend was driving the Bronco. Uh, Oh, he fled. What was it when Simpson fled authorities in a white Ford Bronco? This was June 17th, 1994. Uh, just craziness. I mean, that whole thing I think there was like playoff games, basketball playoff games, all kinds of things that were going on at that time. Everything stopped because you were watching O.J. Simpson flee the police because he didn't want to be arrested at the time uh, for the case. But the Ford Bronco became iconic in history because of the O.J. Simpson case. And lastly, reality TV. And how we know reality TV. Now, I will go back and say like this. Was there reality TV? Yes. You had the real world, you had all those different things. But there was one particular family that came into prominence because of the O.J. Simpson case. And yes, I am speaking about the Kardashians. Why? Because Robert Kardashian, the father of Kim, Chloe, Courtney, Rob, was the best friend and the attorney on the O.J. Simpson case. He was more so pivotal by getting Johnny Cochran and Barry Sheck and who was the other one? It was Johnny Cochran, Robert Shapiro, F. Lee Bailey, Alan Dershowitz, all of those people. He was very, very instrumental in getting them together on this dream team. And so you have Robert Kardashian, whose name was infamous because of this case. Then you see his daughter Kim. Now she did a whole lot of to get out here in the public, but her name only resonated with anybody because of the fact that her father was one of the attorneys on this O.J. Simpson case. So, like I said, I don't want to go back over the case. I don't want to rehash all of that because how you feel is how you feel. That was one of those incidents in pop culture. You really just had to be there to understand how polarizing that case was and how a lot of different things kind of pulled from that case. And I'll just talk really, really, really briefly about that. There was a racial component. There was also a class component, you know, having someone who had a whole lot of money being tried and being able to afford this quote unquote dream team. You also unleashed or you got to see the police corruption with planting evidence and things like that going on. And also, one of the things I guess I need to talk about as well that's in pop culture is forensic science. How a lot of people got interested in forensic science because of that. I never forget that O.J. Simpson case when they were talking about the evidence and Mark Furman, because that man pled the fifth when they asked him a direct question: Did you plant evidence? Plant the bloody socks that you found that were found in the home. I plead the fifth. Y'all, that was the height of TV drama. I remember what was his name? I remember his last name was Lee. I can't think of what his first name was, but he was like a blood splatter evidence. And I remember very clearly watching that trial because, I went to work, but they played the whole trial back on court TV from like 5 o'clock or whatever was going on. So, like from 5 o'clock to 11 o'clock, you can literally sit and watch the trial. But I remember him talking about that sock evidence. And that I remember that just resonated with me just simply because he made that one statement. He said that evidence cannot be trusted because of the fact that people bleed from the inside out, not from the outside in. And what he was saying was is that the way the blood had splat, the way the blood looked under the microscope under that sock, you can tell that the saturation points were coming from the outside of the sock to the inside and it went through to the other side. And he says that that's cannot be possible because there is a void of your foot. So in other words, if the blood had gotten on the sock, it could not go from um, one side directly to the other side of the sock because of the fact that someone's foot should have been in that sock. And that's what I meant by, you couldn't have bled. The blood couldn't have splattered the way it did. It was a whole lot. And I may not be explaining it right, but I just remember that resonated. And I remember when the verdict was coming down, you had people, because and let's be clear, you had white people like he's guilty, he did it, he had to have done it, everything says that he did it, but the evidence was showing that if the gloves didn't fit, they found shoe size in the blood that wasn't Ronald, that wasn't Nicole, that they said was OJ Simpson, but it was too small of a foot. And then they said that the sock evidence and the blood evidence and the way it was dropped, that they believed that Furman planted the evidence. It was a whole lot, a whole lot. It was a whole lot, a whole lot. But I just wanted to briefly go over how that case influenced pop culture, influenced the things and stuff that we do. And if you really look at it, if you talk about stunt shows and shenanigans, that whole case was the king of that. You had the stunts of OJ Simpson fleeing from the cops in the Ford Bronco. You had the shows of OJ Simpson trying on those gloves and they didn't fit. And you had the whole shenanigans of uh, cops pleading the fifth on the stand because they wouldn't say if they planted evidence. They couldn't say in a resounding no, they didn't plant evidence. And they had to have their attorneys there to field the questions and all this other different stuff. You talk about stunt shows and shenanigans. I'm telling you, it was a mess. But anyway, that's all I had. I just rolling off the dome of what I felt like OJ Simpson's influence on pop culture. All right. We do this every week. So please like, comment, and subscribe. Please tell a friend, tell a kin, tell your coworker, tell that heifer that you can't stand that I'm over here making these videos. And as always, people, bye bye.